series here. I just want to go through this video that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's given me a lot of opportunity to just fine tune a bunch of things. So I just want to share that with everyone. It's going to be a gearing video on for T6 speed farming. So basically, it's as want to be super efficient, whether you're solo or group. A couple of things focus on. It's basically like movement speed and survivability and DPS. So you really want to focus on those three things, and it has to be a really fine balance between the three. You don't want too much DPS but no speed. You don't want too much survivability but no DPS. You don't want maximum speed but no DPS. Like, you need a really good balance of all three. So I'm just gonna show you guys what I use personally, and I think from all the combinations that I use, it's pretty much as good as it can get. So we're just gonna go through here real quick. First off, I'm gonna show you the gear. So each individual piece, the alternatives that you could use, and skills that I've chosen, and the reasons why. Okay, so the setup you see in my profile right now is the setup that I feel is probably the best in terms of overall DPS, movement speed, and just playability for either solo or a group. Um, I want to go over this setup here. So first you're going to start out with the 6-piece set for the Firebirds. So gloves, crit hit chance, damage, and take vitality as your third random. Some people take attack speed, and I think this taking the attack speed is pretty much a wasted stat just because it doesn't really affect the overall damage of this build. So you really don't want any attack speed on any pieces of gear if you can help it. Instead, take a vitality stat or armor stat or all resistance stat. So yeah, shoulders. I chose a bunch of vitality and life stats, and then I've taken cooldown reduction. Um, I prioritize cooldown reduction just because it increases your damage, because it reduces the cooldown of all your damage skills, increases your mobility, it reduces your cooldown of your teleport. Uh, so yeah, I take cooldown here. Firebird helm, take vitality just because it's the big roll, just like the glove. Up to 750, take crit hit chance, and your secondaries don't really matter too much, but I prefer duration control and pairing effects. Basically, if you having a little bit of that can prevent you from getting hit. It can prevent you from getting hit after getting stunned. So, for example, if a Punisher jumps on you, you have enough time reduced from the stun to get away without getting hit. So, but if not, it's not a big deal if you don't have it. Those situations don't happen very often, anyways. Pants, vitality, armor here. Same thing, you want maximum stats as on your other body pieces as well. Boots, ideally you don't want movement speed on them, you just take all res, armor, and vitality. So these would be the perfect boots. A little bit low on the rolls, but also for the secondaries, take health gloves whenever you can. They do come in handy, just in case, and they're your biggest source of life gain. For this setup, I've decided that the best setup for damage and playability is going to be the roll ring. So use a roll ring setup so that you can use Cinder Coat. The thing with Cinder Coat is that it does reduce your skills by up to 30%. So the cost of each skill is reduced by 50%. So if a Blizzard cast costs 40 and you reduce it by 30%, you save a ton of arcane power per cast. So you basically get a free cast of Blizzard every 3 casts. So it does come in handy, and there's more. I'll talk more about why I chose this setup instead of other setups in a second here. After that, you take an amulet with fire percentage, crit hit damage, and crit hit chance as high as possible with the sockets. Yeah, so this is as good as it can get. in terms of stats. I'm just off by a little bit, but I wouldn't take a Haunted Vaxo, but this is the strongest amulet that I have. So, but it doesn't really matter. Like ideally, you want like something else, something like an immunity amulet or something. But those are really hard to find, so I'm just using this for now. Take Stone of Jordan. Um, yeah, so you want something with either crit hit damage or crit hit chance, or int's fine too, but you want as high stats as possible with the socket. I've used Warzakian Arm Guards. This boosts your movement speed when you break something, so this thing is pretty invaluable for T6 farming. Take fire percentage and Vit on here as high as possible on all stats. And for the weapon, I feel that the best weapon for this build in general, even T6 or Greater Rifts solos, take the Furnace. The problem with this is that it's super rare. It's going to be hard to find a good rolled one, high damage one. This one is one of the 4 I found actually in the past, I don't know, 4 months of pretty hard, intense play time. And I used this one because I was able to roll the damage range to a element that I could use for my elemental exposure passive. So there are alternatives to the gear that I've selected, so I'm just going to go over that real quick. Oh, sorry, and Harrington. Harrington I chose just because there's no other place to use this except for T6. It's nice little novelty and it's nice little like game within a game. I like chess and clickables, so I don't have an issue going for those. So this gives me a nice damage boost. The alternative and probably the more reliable damage is going to be a Witching Hour, so obviously one with attack speed would be ideal, but if you have one with attack speed, like nothing you can do about it, so you take that one instead. Um, that'll give you a flat damage boost, whereas the Harrington Waistguard would just give you a really big damage boost after you make it clickable. So it's up to you, but it's not a big deal either way. Um, for the for the alternatives, there's going to be this combination where you use Avarice Band and the Gold Wrap. So in this situation, I would sub out the Royal Ring and the Harringtons, and then you have to use the Firebird chest because now you can't use Cinder Coat. So here's the problem here. You're losing a lot of DPS by going Gold Wrap Belt. You're losing a lot of DPS by losing a Cinder Coat, and you're not going to have enough resources to spam a lot spells, which you need to, especially if you're going really fast. So you do gain a ton of survivability. You're basically immortal when you get hit with gold. Now, gearing around it, it's okay, but I feel you lose just too much DPS. Like, you lose a gem, you lose your belt, you lose spam ability, you lose like damage from a Cinder Coat. It's just too much to make up. So I usually don't go that combination unless I'm really hurting for gold. The other combination is to use Unity for solo. So Unity and then Firebird chest. So this would basically make you unkillable as well. And it's a good compromise between the two, but then you're gonna lose a little bit of DPS as well, just because you're not being able to use a Cinder Coat and 20% fire damage. So I usually don't use this, and it doesn't work in groups, so you get no benefit from that. The other combination is if you don't have a Furnace, another good two-hander is actually the Maximus. The reason it's a really good really good weapon is because it does come with 20% fire skills. The reason it's good is because most of T6 is mostly white trash enemies, so the extra fire percentage really helps, especially since most two-handed setups lack fire percentage. So this is actually pretty good, but it's not really as strong as the Furnace. It does try to make it up, like the ability chance to summon demonic slave. The fire chain that comes off of it is actually quite strong, and it attacks very fast. So if you can somehow utilize it, it does close the gap a bit against the Furnace. But in terms of reliability, it's just not as good. But the Maximus is much easier to find in the Furnace. So if you have the Maximus, definitely give it a try. Next setups would be one-handed setups. The best one-hander would be Probably Sunkeeper or Devastator. So of these two, whichever one you have the better one of, you should definitely use. The thing with the Devastator is that you can craft it. So even people that have horrible luck or don't really play that much, they can start off right away with a really good weapon for this build. The reason it's really good is because it has fire percentage and it's a slow hard hitting weapon. The reason Sunkeeper is really good is that it's a slow hard hitting weapon against elites. So either way, whichever one you have better of, it's worth taking. The offhand, you ideally want vitality on it. You can make arguments for other stats. So this is what a one-handed setup would look like. You want Mage Fist, Cinder Coat, RRG, and then a Sunkeeper. Um, it does look a lot better than the Furnace setup on paper. Like you got 116 fire, you got 58 crit, but the thing is, it's when you're comparing the weapon, you look at the Sunkeeper and it's 1657 to 2252 damage, and then you look at the Furnace and it's 3469, 4027. It's almost twice as strong, the Furnace. And the only way like the Sunkeeper is even competitive is that you have all these extra stats. So you have the average damage from the offhand, plus the extra fire percentage, plus the 10 crit, plus the Mage Fist. And in the end, the Furnace is still actually stronger. Just because the cap on elite damage is way more. So against trash, it could be comparable, but against elites, the Furnace will still be stronger. So if you can find a Furnace, definitely use it. Um, but I understand it's really hard to find. Um, all these other ones are pretty close, and especially for T6, you won't really see the difference. The reason why Furnace is really good is because of the elite damage, so it really shows against high HP elites and greater risks. But in T6, it's not going to show as much. So definitely try one of these alternatives if you don't have a Furnace. Okay, so another combination here would be the Compass Rose set. I actually have a very strong Compass Rose and a very strong Traveler's Pledge. So this set is actually quite strong. Instead of using Cinder Coat, Royal Ring, you would use Compass Rose and Firebird Chest. So the problem with this is that instead of using Cinder Coat, you don't have the resource management anymore. So you have to make up for it with your skills, which I'll go over in a second. But in the end, the extra 50 crit hit doesn't make enough of a difference against the 20% fire. That's the big kicker here, is that the 20% fire and the lack of needing any more resource management by using Cinder Coat really pushes Cinder Coat above any kind of other setup that doesn't have it. So I'll go over that in a second here with my skill choices. I'm just going to go over my gems real quick. So ideally all your sockets are on all your jewelry, and the gems that you want to use for T6 is Zai's Stone of Vengeance. This is like pretty much the 100% gem that you have to use on all of these Apocalypse setups. Great gem. Um, your next gem, it's going to be Toxin Gem. I choose Toxin Gem just because it's flat rate damage, it's consistent, it's comparable to Bane of the Powerful. You can use either or, but I just choose Gem of the Toxin just because it's consistent. But I think Bane of the Powerful would be also a very good gem for T6. And the new gem that I've been working on figuring out is a Pain Enhancer. This gem, while it doesn't affect the size of your Firebird dot, it really adds a lot of front-loaded damage. Like, it's such a huge part of your damage that it's worth taking almost over as the secondary gem. Like, it's the second gem behind Zai's, in my opinion. Um, it's even worthwhile even putting in instead of Toxin Gem for greater rifts, in my opinion. I've used both. I tried both. Like, I don't really feel the difference. Both are quite strong. In terms of math, the toxin gem catches up, let's say, as the fight progresses. So in a short fight, Pain Enhancer is quite strong, but in a longer fight, Toxin Gem will catch up and pretty much match the Pain Enhancer gem. But for T6 right now, definitely get your hands on a good Pain Enhancer. It really shows right away, and it's much stronger than any other gem you can put it in to replace it. So give that a try. For my skills, I'll just go over that real quick here. So obviously use Blizzard Apocalypse, the staple skill for this build. Use Wormhole for maximum mobility, just because you're going to be killing stuff really fast, moving really fast. So definitely take Wormhole here. I use Frozen Storm, just because one, there's a lot of good benefits about Frozen Storm actually. One, it triggers my elemental exposure as an extra 5%. Two, it destroys breakables around me without me casting Blizzard, so it gives me the speed boost without me actually doing anything. Three, it opens doors for me, so I don't have to waste my Blizzards to open a door. Four, it actually crits quite a bit, so it actually triggers the Pain Enhancer gem right away. You'll see there's some moments where I just run through trash and they just die. I don't even have to attack them; they just die. The Pain Enhancer just does so much damage. Um, yeah, so Ice Armor, it does sack you a little bit for defensive ability a little bit, but I'll go over how I mitigate that defensive loss. So with the Cinder Coat, I chose to use Force Weapon. Without Cinder Coat, you can go with Conduit. A very good resource management ruin for this skill. You do give up 10%, and that's why I'm saying when I've said that this setup is the strongest setup, because it does have everything. It has your resource management while having the most DPS. So if you chose to use Conduit, you don't need the Cinder Coat. Um, but either or, it's going to be slightly less DPS just because the fire percentage on a Cinder Coat and the extra 10% from Force Armor really adds up. So, use whatever you have in terms of your best gear. Um, for your other skill here, I'm going to use Meteor. It's a good nuke. It one-shots elites playing solo. Sometimes in multiplayer groups, I one-shot elites too. The problem with this is that it doesn't have a cooldown, but for my setup, I actually stacked a bit of cooldown at 42%. So it's not off that often, and you don't really use it that often. I only use it on big packs of trash or big packs of elites that you want to take down in one hit. Black Hole also on cooldown. This one is really good at just clumping up elites. It's usually it one-shots elites too on T6 if you're playing solo. Yeah, pretty much a staple skill as well. So I take Dominance. Dominance is really good in T6 because at the rate things die, so the shields are always up and you're always protected. You notice that without Prismatic or Energy Armor, my defenses are actually quite low. But if you're constantly killing things, your shields are constantly up and they're basically protecting you. So it's really hard to die unless you get hit with like 10 spears at once or something weird like that. But in that case, you have your extra life with the Firebirds, so that's about all you really need. I use Elemental Exposure. On my Furnace, it's the lightning damage. My Blizzard is fire damage, and my Storm Armor is cold damage. So that's 15% if I get within range of the enemy. So that's free 15% with no penalty, and it's a group-wide buff. So gotta use this one. Illusionist, staple, passive, really good. Good for mobility and your lifesaver. And I take Evocation here as my last one, just because increased cooldowns for all your spenders, and then your teleport. You're basically just doing more and more DPS with better cooldowns. So yeah, so that's the setup here. You guys can take another look, and I think it only works well if you have the damage. If you don't have the damage to kill things, you're gonna take Blur here instead of Dominance. But I think for T6, if you have reasonable gear, you should be able to maximize the effectiveness of Dominance. Make sure you guys have enough resource management, so you don't want to be overly spamming. Like, you don't want to waste your arcane power, so make sure you guys handle your resources properly. Like you'll notice, like with Cinder Code, like look at the amount of lizards I can cast, right? Um, yeah, but let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys can take something out of this. Uh, I definitely feel that after this many months of just speedrunning through, that this is probably the best setup in terms of just overall playability and DPS. It combines all three of the factors that we were talking about really well. Um, if any other combination would probably sacrifice um, one of the three, whether it's DPS, mobility, or survivability. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please watch my sample runs after this. Thanks.